Omaha Mom Talks, proudly sponsored by Day Ventures Swim School, where giggles and goggles unite. Hello and welcome back to Omaha Mom Talks. I'm your host, Jessie Gutierrez, a wife, proud mom of two, a mental health therapist, and today we are back at the Hurrdat studio for the start of season 3 of Omaha Mom Talks. I just want to take a quick moment and say thank you to everyone for listening in, whether this is your first time joining us or you've been here since the very first episode. I'm just so glad that you're here. My hope with this podcast is to create community, connection, and healing for moms and those who support moms. That's right, you don't have to be a mom. You just have to love moms and support moms to be a listener of Omaha Mom Talks. I started Omaha Mom Talks because I was having these same conversations over and over in my therapy practice. Convos with moms who were feeling exhausted, overwhelmed, anxious, and so often just feeling alone in their struggles. This podcast is one way to make sure that these conversations don't stay closed behind doors. I want you to feel supported, heard, and most of all, for you to know that you are not alone in this. And of course, before we dive into today's episode, I want to add my quick disclaimer. This podcast is not a substitute for mental health therapy. I like to share education, resources, and real talks, but please note this is not a replacement for your own work with a licensed provider if you need it. Today's topic, we are talking about the connection between perfectionism and anxiety. This topic felt like a perfect, unintended, way to start our season 3 of Omaha Mom Talks. We're talking about how as moms we put so much pressure on ourselves, how we can be so hard on ourselves, and we can get stuck in this perfectionist trap. Perfectionism is a topic that I see come up time and time again in my therapy practice. It's something I see in so many moms, and honestly, it's something that I've wrestled with within myself. It's that voice that says, do more, be better, don't mess this up. For me personally, I don't actually resonate with the word perfectionist. I don't consider myself a perfectionist, and I've seen that same resistance in a lot of my clients. So if you're listening in and you're already like, nope, I'm not a perfectionist, I'm tapping out, I want to encourage you to stay in and we'll chat more about this. So I am a therapist that goes to therapy, and when my own therapist started bringing up this topic of perfectionism or would label me as a high achiever, I immediately internally was thinking, well, she's not talking about me, because in my head, I am dropping the ball, I'm messing things up, I'm losing my patience. I certainly am not a perfectionist. And that high achieving label, again, foreign to me, because in my head, I'm thinking, high achiever, what have I actually achieved? I had this very narrow definition of what achievement looked like. Like it had to be some really big gold star moment, a big accomplishment. And so that label I just dismissed. Then one day in session with my own therapist, she was talking about how comparison and high expectations can set us up for failure. And we have a really good rapport, we have a really good relationship. And so I interrupted her and was like, yeah, I don't actually really compare myself to other people. That's not a general theme or pattern that I struggle with, but I do I compete with myself all the time. I'm always in competition with myself. I want to work harder, be better, do better, and just be a better version of myself. And that's when she gave me this look. And if you are in therapy, maybe you're familiar with this look, but it's that kind of look that just makes you pause, redirect, look a little bit deeper inside yourself and be like, oh crap. I do that, or I am guilty of this thing that you're trying to wave in front of my face ever so gently. And so it was in that moment that I realized I am in constant competition with myself. I'm always raising the bar higher and higher, and then I'm so hard on myself when I fall short. I get upset with myself when I make small mistakes along the way. And I was really kind of ugly to myself with the narrative and the self criticism and the harsh statements. And I know personally and professionally that spiral of self criticism, that feeling of not being enough or not doing it right, is exhausting. And it is what I call the perfectionist trap. And that's what I want to chat with you guys about today. I will also add that I still don't label myself a perfectionist, and so maybe you don't either, and that label might not feel quite all right for you, and that's totally okay. If that word doesn't land for you, maybe lean into this idea of the perfectionist trap and noticing if you have any perfectionist tendencies within yourself. Because even if we don't see ourselves as a classic perfectionist, those tendencies may still be driving some of your anxiety. As a therapist for women and moms, so often I am seeing these perfectionist tendencies show up in women, and it's looking a lot like what we see as traditional anxiety. This can look like racing thoughts, over preparing for possible outcomes, events, or moments, ruminating over past decisions or past conversations, and constantly feeling like nothing is not quite good enough. Like I'm not good enough. And let me tell you, motherhood just pours fuel to that fire. We've got cultural pressure to be the perfect mom. We've got Instagram telling you how other moms are doing it or supposedly doing it so well and so perfectly. We've got family expectations, work demands, and not to mention your own inner critic piling on. It's no wonder so many of us are lying awake at night with our minds spinning. So let's talk about what perfectionism actually might look like in the day-to-day life of a mom. So this is not just like wanting your house to be clean and organized or having a tidy space. Perfectionism is often a survival strategy. This idea that if I can just do everything right, then maybe I'll feel calm, then maybe I'll feel safe, or maybe I'll finally feel like I'm enough. It can show up in things like obsessing over your baby's sleep schedule or their wake windows. It may look like staying up until midnight, Googling every car seat review because you just can't handle the idea of getting it wrong for your child. It can show up in replaying conversations with friends or loved ones, or even replaying a conversation that you had with your child's teacher because you just don't want to sound like that mom. Or maybe it's believing that if you take a nap instead of folding that laundry, you're somehow failing for needing rest. Another thing I often see hand in hand with perfectionism is avoidance and procrastination. Procrastination or avoiding is because often the overwhelming feeling of making a mistake or not being able to do it right is just so heavy and so much, and so it puts us into freeze mode. This is often what I hear from people when they say, like, I'm not a perfectionist, I'm not a high achiever, because I actually like procrastinate and delay and avoid things. But what I would ask you to look into is what are the reasons that you're avoiding? Why am I putting this task off? And if it's linked to fear of messing up, not getting it right, not being able to do it your best, maybe this has a little bit something to do with that perfectionist trap. If you're nodding your head right now to any of these things, this could be perfectionism showing up in you. And for so many moms, this isn't just a personality quirk, it's often tied to anxiety. Placing unrealistic high expectations on yourself or others is a sure way to increase your anxiety, because none of us are capable of perfection. High standards have the effect of setting ourselves up for failure. I had the most beautiful real life example when my oldest was in kindergarten, and she came home and said to me, Mom, my teacher, Mrs. Raz, shout out to Mrs. Raz, we love her, told me that perfect doesn't exist. And I said, oh, okay, well, what do you think about that? And we had this conversation. She's now in second grade, and we are continuously having this conversation because she has some perfectionist tendencies, as does her mother, and we have to both remind ourselves perfection doesn't exist. And this little girl, she loves to try me. She is a therapist's daughter, like true and true. And so she'll put me in these traps that'll be like, but mom, don't you think I'm perfect? And so I'm like, girl, you are perfect to me, but perfect doesn't exist. And so we get into these hard conversations. But what I want my daughter, both of my daughters, to learn is that it is okay to be human. It is okay to make mistakes, and it doesn't make you a failure. It doesn't take away from your value if you make a mistake. So here's where some of the psychoeducation comes in. When perfectionism is running the show, your body is basically in this constant state of fight or flight. Your brain is scanning for potential mistakes. Your nervous system can get stuck in overdrive, and that cortisol, that stress hormone, is pumping through your body. That's why you feel restless, tense, like you just can't shut your brain off. It's not because you're just bad at relaxing, which is something I hear from a lot of moms. I just can't relax. Even when I have time, I always got to be busy. I got to be go, go, go. This is because your nervous system has learned to stay on high alert. And this loop is so brutal. Anxiety fuels perfectionism, and perfectionism fuels the anxiety. So if you end up with racing thoughts like, if I don't do it all, or if I don't do it just right, because then I'm failing, or if you're having thoughts of, why is this so hard for me, but it doesn't seem hard for other people, or the big one that I hear so often, I feel like a bad mom. These thoughts are so heavy, and I want you to know you are not broken. You're a mom that's living in a culture that has set us up to feel this way. Let's chat a little bit about where this comes from and some potential ways that perfectionism might have popped into you. We're not going to cover them all, but I do want to make it clear that perfectionism doesn't just appear out of nowhere. For a lot of us, it can be connected from our childhood. Maybe love and safety was tied to achievement in your family. This could look like getting praise or validation or attention from caregivers when you really excelled at something, when you did your best, when you were really well behaved. And maybe mistakes weren't tolerated. And so this created a pattern of overfunctioning. Maybe folks have actually a lot of folks that I meet with at least have this ongoing deep, deep belief of, I'll never be good enough. I have to show up, I have to do more, be better in order to be loved and accepted by others. Then we have that cultural pressure, and this adds such a heavy, heavy layer of expectations. Moms are supposed to cherish every moment of motherhood. It's so blissful and lovely. We are anticipated to just bounce back from birth, manage our home, excel at work, look good while doing it all. And social media makes it worse, right? Like the comparisons are just endless. This need for perfection can be so brutal and just in our faces everywhere we look. We also have folks that their perfectionism tendencies may come from harsh criticism or trauma. If someone has experienced trauma, they have experienced the world as unsafe in some sort of way. And perfectionism can actually feel supportive to those folks. It's this voice that can say, if I just keep everything perfect, then I can stay safe. And I won't be hurt or criticized or abandoned. And that makes a lot of sense. And it's also a very exhausting way to live continuously. Hey, Nebraska moms, I want to share with you about an upcoming event hosted by Postpartum Support International called The Climb. This event is on October 11th from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. in Waverly, Nebraska. PSI Nebraska is hosting The Climb on October 11th from 9 to 11 at Wayne Park in Waverly. The Climb is a 1-mile walk dedicated to raising awareness and funds for perinatal mental health, honoring the struggles, remembering losses, and celebrating survivors. It's a beautiful way to come together as a community and support moms and families. If you'd like to learn more or join, I'll link the details in the show notes. Let's chat a little bit about signs that perfectionism might be driving your anxiety. If our perfectionism is starting to interfere or keeping us stuck or paralyzed or causing distress in your life more often than not, this is an indication that our perfectionism is no longer serving us. Because I want to be clear, a lot of folks that I chat with struggle when I say, could you drop the bar a little bit? Or could you let things go? That's like hard for people, especially high achievers. So we're going to chat more about this, but I want to be clear in that I'm not saying that perfectionist tendencies are always bad. A lot of good comes from being a high achiever, working hard, having high expectations for yourself. But as I mentioned a moment ago, if your perfectionist tendencies are keeping you stuck, are paralyzing you, or causing distress more often or not, that is when this is problematic for you. So here are some signs that perfectionist tendencies might be driving your anxiety. I'm going to share some examples and I just want you to listen in, see if any of these resonate, and if anything really sticks out to you, maybe jot it down. I have high standards for myself and I usually hold them to myself. I usually have a right way to do something, and if it's very difficult for me to vary from that approach. People consider me extremely organized and careful as a worker. When I'm wrong or make a mistake, I'm very embarrassed and ashamed of myself. When others are watching me, I'm very concerned about what they think, and I don't want to embarrass myself. I almost never perform at a level that I'm satisfied or happy with. I have a really hard time letting go of mistakes that I make, and I think about them and ruminate on them often. I feel like I have to be hard on myself or I just won't get better. Sometimes I procrastinate or avoid tasks because I know I can't do something perfectly. I often over-prepare for events or meetings. I feel irritated or snap when things feel out of control. I struggle to delegate or ask for help. I must do it all myself because I know I can do it right. When I achieve something, I still feel like it's not good enough. If you're nodding along to any of those, I want you to know you're not alone. A lot of these are signs of that perfectionist trap, and if, as I mentioned, if any of these are problematic for you, causing you distress or happening so frequently and so intensely, that is when we want to look at maybe looking at some outside help like a mental health therapist, or looking at ways that we can take care of ourselves and be kinder to ourselves. So let's chat a little bit about how we can shift from perfectionism into what we call good enough and step out of this loop of perfectionism and anxiety. One of my favorite tools comes from Dr. Donald Winnicott and this concept of the good enough mother. The good enough mother describes a parent who provides consistent care and emotional support while allowing their child to manage reasonable frustrations. Now, folks don't often like it when I suggest being good enough because it means lowering the bar. And the good enough mother isn't about lowering the bar so far that nothing matters. It's just about showing up with consistency, care, and presence, while also allowing our kids to experience manageable frustrations. That's actually what builds resilience and independence in our kids. Kids don't need us to be perfect. They need us to be human, to show up authentically, and to repair when things go sideways. Aiming for good enough doesn't mean you can't have high expectations for yourself. You can still succeed, just without the self-criticism and without the unhelpful feeling of I'm not good enough. Let me give you a personal example. Not long ago, I was solo parenting, so my husband travels for work. And I was trying to wrangle all of my girls, well, there's two of them and myself, so all three of us out of the home on a very busy morning. Getting out of the house in the mornings is always chaotic for us. So I had work, two separate school drop-offs, and the chaos was very high on this particular morning. I had asked my daughter to put on her shoes 3 times so we could get out the door. And on the 4th time, I finally snapped. I yelled in a very harsh tone that I don't like to use, and that then made my youngest cry because I wasn't even yelling at her, I was yelling at the other one. But she got scared because my voice was so sharp and so scary. And in the past, I would have immediately spiraled into self-criticism internally. Like, crap, Jessie, you're such a crap mom. Why did you yell like that? Who yells at their kid over shoes? I would have gotten stuck in this really critical part of my brain. But instead, I stepped away. I took some deep breaths. I reminded myself, hey, you shouldn't talk to your kids like that. And you're human and you made a mistake. You can repair. And so I went back once I had calmed myself down, and I acknowledged to my girls that I yelled and that wasn't okay for mom. I say something like, hey, mom yelled at you. That's not okay. I shouldn't yell like that. I was feeling really frustrated, and that voice probably felt very scary, and I'm so sorry that I did that. So that's my apology. That's my acknowledgement. That is my repair with my kids. So a lot of times in psychology, we talk about rupture and repair with our kids, our partners, in all relationships. And that repair is what teaches my child that I might not get it right the first time. Mom makes mistakes. Mistakes are allowed. But also mistakes can be safe, right? Because I yelled at her and that was scary, but I came back and I nurtured the connection. I nurtured the relationship. I took ownership. I apologized. And in that way, we get to maintain our connection. That initial criticism I have of myself of like, oh, you're a crap mom who yells at their kids over shoes, that's what we call all or nothing thinking or black and white thinking. Because the reality is, we can be good at some things without being good at everything at the same time. So that black and white thinking of I'm a crap mom. No, I'm not a crap mom. I made a crappy decision or I reacted in a poor way, but I'm human and I'm a good mom and I love my kids. Now let's talk a little bit about shifting into this good enough mother practice. Here are just a few mindset shifts or affirmations that you can use that I really love and share a lot with the moms that I support. Done is better than perfect. So check boxes count even if you didn't do them to your optimal level every time. My worth isn't measured by my productivity. Rest is part of good parenting. So taking care of you is taking care of your kids. Being human is part of being a good mom. Mistakes aren't proof that you are a failure. They are proof that you're a human and you're real. I want you to try a little experiment this week with practicing a little bit of flexibility and let one thing be just okay and just good enough. Maybe that means that dinner is takeout and you can let off the load of cooking a 4-course organic meal for your little lovies. Maybe that means that your laundry stays unfolded. Find something that you can let go of and just be okay with it and allow this just good enough mentality. As you do that, notice what comes up for you. Notice the discomfort, the guilt, or maybe that inner critic that is saying not so nice things to yourself. And then remind yourself, this is practice. This allows you to flex that muscle of tolerating the imperfection, which puts you back in the driver's seat instead of your inner critic. Oftentimes, perfectionism comes from this belief that doing all of the things just right will make us feel loved or accepted. But the reality is that the deepest connections are from the people who remind us you don't have to be perfect to be loved. For me, I think about those mom friends that I can call or text in the chaos, in the messy moments, that I can be real, raw, and authentic with. Those are where those deep connections really live. And at the end of the day, shifting from perfect to good enough is about living from our personal values instead of living from a place of fear. If my core value is spending quality time with my kids, then that may mean that I have to allow the kitchen to be messy so that I can play with my kids, cozy up with them, and have the few hours each evening before bedtime with them. That is something that I personally have had to let go of. I know a lot of individuals who could never go to bed with dishes in the sink. And if that's you, that's fine. I'm not saying you need to change that. But sometimes that's something that I have had to let go of so that I can focus on my value of spending quality time with the kids, knowing that the dishes will still be there in the morning. For me, that's parenting from a place of presence, not perfection. So I want to give you a few questions to reflect on. So maybe taking some time to jot down either these questions and journal or put something in your phone notes and just think about how you can shift how you see and do things in your own life. So the first question for reflection that I want you to think about is, where do I feel the most pressure to be perfect? What would good enough look for or look like in that area for me? What is one thing in that area that I could let go of and allow to be good enough just for today? Take some time and just reflect on those questions. So, to wrap things up today, perfectionism and anxiety are often two sides of the same coin. It's that constant push to do more, to prove more, and it can wear us down. But with awareness, with practice, with self-compassion for ourselves, we can start to loosen that grip. And remember, your kids don't need a perfect mom. They need a present one. Good enough really is good enough. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for listening to Omaha Mom Talks today. The fact that you pressed play and listened in lets me know that you are already doing the work and caring for yourself, and that matters. Season 3 of Omaha Mom Talks is just getting started. We will be dropping new episodes every Wednesday, and we have so many important conversations coming. I'd love for you to be a part of them. Please make sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss an episode. Come say hi on Instagram. I'm at Omaha Mom Talks and at Jessie Gutierrez _. And if there is a topic on your heart, send me a message. Chances are, if you're struggling with it, someone else is too. Until next time, thanks for listening. Be gentle with yourself and take care of you. Bye.